Hallo Kevin, is Heather. Cymra ha sibh and you. Hami gle va. Ach, ha gle ur and you. Gle ur an alaba. Hami alabanach. Hami alabanach. Hami alabanach. Ha sibh Americanach. Vami in Boston and 2001. Va e chirum. Agus fuer. Well, agus pla. Agus pla. The word for big in Gaelic is more. If you think of more, you've more or less got it. More. And the word for little is beck. So, for example, there's a radio show on Radio na Gael, and it's called Big Mary. Big Mary. So that would be Vari Vor, Big Mary. She would say, is Misha Mary? But if I met her, I would say, hello, Avari, because of the lenition process. And also because of the lenition process, the adjective big also takes the H. So Big Mary becomes Vari Vor, Big Mary. I'm afraid Gaelic isn't very politically correct. So you hear people being referred to by their size rather than maybe by their name. Big Mary on the radio is one of those things. That's a bit of a shock for English culture and probably for American culture as well. There was one lady I remember called Mary Vor nan Oren. Now I'm saying her name is Mary Vor, okay, rather than Vari Vor, because this lady died many years ago. Okay, she's something from history. She was a famous Gaelic singer. Oran means song, and on the internet, if you put in Oran Mor, Glasgow, you'll see a lovely, beautiful restaurant and cafe and theatre called Oran Mor. Anyway, Mary Vor was a Scottish Gaelic poet from the Isle of Skye, and she died in 1898. So try googling Mary Vor nan Oren and see what you find. Or maybe on the radio show, if you try Vari Vor Radio na Gael, you can see that she really is big. Okay, let's move on, because I want to talk to you about the verb to be. Now, I've already told you that it's a little bit different if you're talking about identity, but the verb to be, to describe things, hami, I am. It can also be as Misha if you're talking about a name. But let's just stay with hami for a moment. Hami fuer, I'm cold. Ha fuer, is he and it. Ha fuer, ha fuer, it's cold. And then we move on, and we have you. Ha u fuer. Ha u fuer. You are cold. Ha shin fuer. We are cold. Or if you wanted to say we're a small family, you could say ha shin beck. Ha shin beck. We're small. Ha shin more. We're big. Or you could say the children. Ha eight. They are big. Ha eight more. Or ha eight beck. Takes a little while to remember. Two things I want to tell you, because I don't think this has been clear, but now the time's to clarify it. Ha he or it, and ha is she. Now, because of the way we pronounce things and pronounce them quickly, I'm sure you'll hear some variations of that, but it's very important that you try to remember and he and she. Ha fuer, it is cold. Ha fuer, she is cold. And you can expect to hear some different ideas of that. Now, you plural is sibh. This is a very interesting point. Let me explain. Okay. In Gaelic, you plural is always used if we're addressing a singular person. Now, let me explain. It's not actually that complicated. I'm going to give you an English example. So the Queen, she doesn't say, I'm cold. She says, we are cold, because it's the Queen. And she also says things like, we are not amused. She's using the we there instead of I, because it's more polite. And in Old English and in Gaelic, that was always the way. You didn't use the I, okay, or you used the you differently. It's different now, okay, of course, but in Gaelic it's still very important. So, you plural is actually sibh. So when you say Kimara Hashiv, you're actually saying, how are you all? At the start of this podcast, I said, Kimara Hashiv, Kevin is Heather. How are you both? That's really what it means, or how are you all? Because there's two of you there. Yeah? So my point is that Kimara Hashiv, it is more polite, but its physical meaning is how are you all? It's plural, to address one person. I hope I've made that clear. Let me just quickly explain it again. Sibh is plural. We use it to address one person in very polite situations. Kimara Hashiv is how are you all? When it's easier simply to say Kimara Hau. Okay? But if there really is more than one person, it's Kimara Hashiv. So Kimara Hashiv, Heather is Kevin. Or Kevin is Heather. And there we have it. I hope that's made it a little bit clear. Now, I want to take a moment just to tell you a little bit about Gaelic and Alaba. Gaelic in Scotland. So, Hami Albanach, Hashiv Americanach, or Americanach. It's up to you where you want to put the stress. Okay. So, you know, my grandparents were Gaels. My family came from a little island called Islay, which is a long way away. They didn't come from Islay themselves. It was actually their great-grandparents who came from Islay. My grandmother was Irish as well, so she had a bit of Irish Gaelic. Now, I need to tell you something at this point. Gaelic during the 1980s and 1990s was not very fashionable. In fact, it was very heavily suppressed. I would have been ashamed to tell anyone I spoke Gaelic or knew Gaelic, and it was something I kept hidden. If I spoke Gaelic at school, I would have been punished a lot. So I didn't. But when the Scottish government came to power, they wanted to try to revive it, because they knew that there were many people like me around who knew Gaelic from their parents or grandparents, but couldn't speak it or couldn't write it or didn't want to speak it, for example. Around the Isles today, there's still a lot of Gaelic speakers, but there's no people left who only have Gaelic. It's incredibly sad. More people speak Gaelic in Canada than they do in Scotland. It's a very interesting thing to study, and people are working very hard to bring it back. The Scottish Parliament has passed many laws to ensure that companies and road signs are in Gaelic. But because Gaelic is associated with Irish Gaelic, which is associated with Catholicism, people here are still a little bit uncomfortable with it, especially in Northern Ireland. Because if you speak Gaelic, you're more or less advertising the fact that you're Catholic, and that can get you into big trouble in some places. I'm pleased to say that times have changed, and Gaelic now is more of a secular thing. But there was a time when really it was making a bigger statement than just Gaelic. Especially since most of us on the west coast of Scotland have Gaelic-speaking Irish grandparents, or non-Gaelic-speaking Northern Irish grandparents. I'll tell you more about that another time. So, let's get back to some Gaelic. I already told you, Vamian in Boston, 2001. Ha Boston Bria, agus Chirm, agus Bla. Hammy more, I'm fat, okay, and that's the truth. Avilio, Beck. And my mother, Beck, she was small. My father, more. Now these pronouns we haven't really spoken about, okay? We'll keep going over them because I think in my pronunciations on WhatsApp, it all sounds like E, but it's actually The good thing about making these YouTube clips is I'm also learning, because my Gaelic is okay, but because I don't get the chance to talk it very often, after all, I'm living with a Spanish or Venezuelan man, it's very good for me to refresh as well. The best way to practice is to listen to Radio na Gael and try to repeat what you hear. Okay, so let's just do a few more Gaelic phrases quickly before we finish. Ha mi furin ju, ha e fluch. Va I beck, va e mor. Monien. Remember, where does the verb go? So monien is what? Can you remember? And where would the verb be? The verb would be at the beginning, ha monien. And then you would have beck. Now, I'm not talking about lenition yet. When I explain the rules about how the sounds change with the H, okay, you'll know more about how pronunciation changes. But that's a little bit complex. So I want to keep it simple with stuff that you already know. So I hope that makes things a little bit clear. That's the verb to be. hami, hami, ha-u, ha-eh, ha-e, ha-shin, ha-shiv, and ha-eat. So ha-shiv, Kevin, is Heather. I hope I got the name right, by the way. I hope it is Heather. I'm sure you told me that, Kevin, before. Anyway, there we are. So, cheerio and rasta.